In the vast emptiness of the Carina sector, the Kelzari warship dominance cut through space like a blade of obsidian. Its hull, crafted from living metal that absorbed light rather than reflected it, made it appear more like a void than a vessel. On its command bridge, Admiral Zar-El stood with 4 arms clasped behind his back, all 6 eyes fixed on the holographic display before him. "Another human relic," he said, his voice carrying the distinctive metallic resonance of his species. The object of his attention hung in space before them, a massive station, its architecture unlike anything in modern galactic design. Where contemporary stations favored smooth, organic shapes, this one was all angles and purpose, its surface marked with strange geometric patterns that seemed to pulse with a barely perceptible light. "Preliminary scans suggest it's been dormant for at least 50,000 years, Science Officer Vex reported, her tendrils writhing with excitement. "The energy readings are unusual, Admiral. They don't match any known configuration." Zar-El clicked his mandibles in dismissal. "The humans are nothing but stories now, Vex. Tales told to juvenile spawn about a species that reached too far and burned out too fast." He gestured at the station with one of his secondary arms. "This is just another piece of space debris, albeit one that might advance our understanding of primitive technologies." The science officer's tendrils coiled tightly, a sign of disagreement she wouldn't voice aloud. Instead, she focused on her instruments, monitoring the strange pulses emanating from the station. "Sir, I'm detecting power fluctuations. They appear to be increasing." Before Zar-El could respond, a beam of light erupted from the station, scanning the dominance from bow to stern. The bridge crew froze, centuries of technological superiority warring with instinctive caution. A defensive scan? Zar-El wondered aloud, more curious than concerned. From technology this old? Impressive that it still functions at all. The scanning beam disappeared, and for a moment, silence reigned on the bridge. Then, a voice filled their communication systems, not through any known channel, but seemingly emanating from the ship's structure itself. It spoke in perfect modern galactic, yet carried undertones that made Zar-El's exoskeleton vibrate uncomfortably. "This is Lighthouse Station 7. You have entered restricted space. Verify your authorization or withdraw immediately." Zar-El's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sound his crew knew as laughter. "Authorization? From whom?" "Your creators are dust, machine. The galaxy belongs to the Kelzari Dominion now." He turned to his tactical officer. "Prepare to dock. We'll strip this relic for anything useful and add its mass to our resource banks." "Admiral," Vex interjected, her voice tight with concern, "the energy readings are still climbing. I'm detecting activation sequences we don't understand." "Perhaps we should." "Your species was warned in the ancient accords," the station's voice interrupted, now carrying a note of finality. "The consequences of your choice are your own." The station's geometric patterns suddenly blazed with blinding light. Zar-El raised his primary arms to shield his eyes, even as his tactical officer shouted, "Energy spike. Massive power surge detected. Launch boarding pods," Zar-El commanded, his voice sharp with irritation. "This antique doesn't have the power to." The station pulsed once, and every system on the dominance went dark. The living metal of the hull became inert, and the ship's artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. In the chaos, Zar-El grabbed his command console for support, all 6 eyes wide with disbelief. "Impossible," he whispered, watching as lights began to appear across the station's surface, complex patterns forming and reforming in sequences that made his vision blur. "This technology is dead. The humans are gone. They're nothing but myths." Within the station, systems that had slumbered for millennia stirred to life. In a chamber at its heart, a consciousness that was neither fully human nor purely artificial awakened. Dr. Sarah Chen had volunteered for digital preservation, knowing this day might come, knowing that humanity's legacy might need a guardian with both the wisdom of organic life and the persistence of machine intelligence. As she spread her awareness through the station's systems, she accessed the historical records of the species that had triggered her awakening. The Kelzari, evolved from hive-dwelling arthropods, achieved faster-than-light travel 3,000 years ago, established their dominion through a combination of technological superiority and absolute certainty in their own supremacy. They had been warned. All spacefaring species were warned. The stations were not to be approached without proper authorization, not to be treated as salvage or subjects for study. The warnings were encoded into the ancient accords, the one piece of human legacy the galaxy had been permitted to retain. Sarah felt no pleasure as she activated the station's defense systems, but neither did she feel remorse. She had been preserved to make exactly these kinds of decisions, to protect the network humanity had scattered across the galaxy before their departure. The Dominance's crew watched in horror as structures began to emerge from the station's surface, not weapons, precisely, but tools of such advanced design that the distinction hardly mattered. Fields of force took shape around the Kelzari vessel, probing its living metal hull with energies that reduced the supposedly indestructible material to its component atoms. Full reverse. Zar-El ordered, his composure finally cracking. Launch countermeasures. Fire everything we have. But the Dominance's weapons remained silent, its engines dead, its vaunted technology rendered useless by systems designed to suppress exactly such resistance. The station's voice returned, but now it carried something new, not just authority, but understanding, and perhaps a touch of sadness. Your species was given time to mature, it said. To move beyond the belief that might makes right, that technological advancement equals wisdom. You were found wanting. Zar-El watched as sections of his mighty warship began to dissolve, the living metal returning to raw atomic material under the station's influence. Wait, he said, his pride finally giving way to desperation. Wait. We can negotiate. Whatever price your creators demanded, the Dominion can pay it. The price, Sarah Chen's consciousness responded through the station's systems, is understanding. And you're about to receive your first lesson. The station pulsed one final time, and the Dominance's command and control systems came back online, but changed, altered at a fundamental level. Through them, information began to flow, the true history of humanity's rise and voluntary departure from the galaxy, the purpose of the lighthouse stations, and the tests every species must pass before being granted access to the legacy humanity had left behind. As Zar-El absorbed this information, he felt his worldview crumbling. His mighty warship hung helpless before technology so advanced it might as well be magic, created by a species his people had dismissed as legendary. And this was just one station, he realized with growing dread. The historical data showed dozens, perhaps hundreds scattered throughout the galaxy, waiting. The network is awakening, the station announced, and now other lights were visible in the distance, other stations coming to life after millennia of dormancy. Your actions here have triggered the legacy protocol. The galaxy's trial period is over. In that moment, Admiral Zar-El of the Kelzari Dominion understood that he had done more than merely encounter an ancient human relic. He had shattered his civilization's understanding of their place in the cosmos, and the ripples of this encounter would reshape the galaxy in ways he could barely begin to comprehend. The first contact's price would be paid not in resources or lives, but in the currency of wisdom. And as the station's systems continued their work, as the Dominance's crew struggled to comprehend their new reality, the ghost of humanity stirred within its network of lighthouse stations, preparing to guide, or judge, the galaxy's civilizations once more. The news of the Dominance's encounter spread through the Kelzari Dominion like a quantum shockwave. In the Grand Assembly Chamber on Kelzar Prime, High Chancellor Vexterra watched the recorded footage for the 100th time, her carapace plates shifting uneasily as the ancient station dismantled their most advanced warship with casual ease. Impossible to contain this information, she chittered to her advisors. The chamber's crystalline walls reflected their forms infinitely, a reminder of how quickly news spread in their interconnected empire. Already, 16 other stations have activated across known space. First strategist Kex Lee moved forward, his battle-scarred exoskeleton gleaming under the chamber's lights. The station's demands are unprecedented. They speak of tests, of trials. As if we, the Dominion, must prove ourselves worthy of their attention. Their attention? Vextera's mandibles clicked sharply. The humans are gone. These are merely their machines, their echoes. Inside Lighthouse Station 7, Sarah Chen observed their discussion through quantum-entangled sensors that defied modern understanding. Her consciousness, a perfect blend of human insight and machine precision, analyzed their reactions with careful attention. They still don't understand, she communicated to the awakening network of stations. They see us as caretakers, not guardians. As echoes, not inheritors. The response came instantly, a chorus of other preserved consciousnesses stirring from their long dormancy. The legacy protocol was clear, they reminded her. Species that approach the stations must demonstrate wisdom equal to their technological achievement. The Kelzari failed the initial contact parameter. Sarah focused her attention on the quantum probability streams flowing through the station's computational matrices. The Kelzari weren't evil, few species truly were. But their civilization had developed faster than their wisdom, their technology outpacing their understanding. It was exactly the scenario the Lighthouse Network had been designed to prevent. In the Dominion's military command center, Admiral Zar-El faced a tribunal of his peers. His once proud stance was diminished, but his voice remained steady as he reported. The station's systems, they didn't just disable the dominance. They rewrote our base understanding of physics. Equations we thought were fundamental laws turned out to be. He struggled for words, training wheels. Limitations put in place until we were ready for more. The tribunal shifted uncomfortably. One of the judges leaned forward, her ceremonial armor clicking. Ready for what, exactly? Before Zar-El could answer, every screen in the command center activated simultaneously. The same geometric patterns that had appeared on the station now danced across their displays, resolving into a human face, Dr. Sarah Chen, preserved as she had been 50,000 years ago. Ready for the truth, she said, her voice carrying that same resonance that had shaken them before. Your species stands at a crossroads. The choice of which path to take is yours, but the consequences will affect all. In orbit around Kelzer Prime, another lighthouse station phased into existence, appearing from dimensional spaces the Kelzari had never imagined possible. Unlike Station 7, this one was fully activated, its surfaces alive with swirling patterns of light and energy. We are not simply relics, Sarah continued, her image appearing on every communication device across the Dominion simultaneously. We are the guardians humanity left behind, tasked with ensuring that no species would repeat our mistakes. That none would acquire the power to destroy worlds before learning the wisdom to preserve them. In the Grand Assembly, Vextera watched as the new station began scanning their homeworld. Data streamed across her screens, information about their planet's deteriorating ecosystem, about the thousands of worlds they had stripped for resources, about the species they had displaced or destroyed in their expansion. Your civilization stands at technology level 7, Sarah explained, her voice neither condemning nor approving. But your wisdom index remains at level 3. This disparity triggered the legacy protocol. You will now face a choice. First strategist Kexley's battle instincts flared. What choice? What gives you the right to judge us? Not judgment, Sarah corrected. Guidance. Humanity faced this same choice eons ago. We chose to transcend, to leave this dimension to younger species. But before we departed, we created the Lighthouse Network to prevent others from destroying themselves, or the galaxy, as we nearly did. The station above Kelzer Prime began to pulse with new energies. Across Kelzari space, other stations awakened, creating a network of light that connected their entire empire. The message was clear, there would be no military solution, no technological breakthrough that could overcome this challenge. Your options are simple, Sarah continued. Accept guidance, learn to balance wisdom with power, and eventually join the community of species who have proved themselves ready for humanity's legacy. Or reject this opportunity, maintain your current path, and face the consequences of technological regression. Admiral Zarel, watching from his tribunal chamber, felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. Regression? If a species proves unwilling to learn, Sarah explained, their technological capabilities are reduced to match their wisdom level. This is not punishment, but protection, for themselves and others. In the Grand Assembly, Vexterra faced the most crucial decision of her species' history. The stations had them completely at their mercy, yet offered not conquest but guidance. Their technology, which they had thought supreme, was revealed to be primitive compared to what humanity had achieved, and chosen to put aside. How? She finally asked, her voice carrying the weight of her entire civilization. How do we begin? Sarah's image smiled, and for a moment, the Kelzari saw something they had never truly understood before, the possibility of power tempered by wisdom, of advancement driven by more than conquest and pride. You already have, she said. By asking that question, you've taken the first step. The Lighthouse network activates fully in one standard day. When it does, the real trial begins. Not just for the Kelzari, but for every spacefaring species in the galaxy. As her words echoed across the Empire, the stations pulsed in unison, their light reaching across the vast distances between stars. Humanity's legacy was awakening, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Kelzari Dominion's greatest scientists huddled around displays showing data streams from the awakened lighthouse stations. Their traditional confidence had given way to something new, humility tinged with awe. The stations weren't just advanced technology, they operated on principles that seemed to defy the very laws of physics. Look at these power readings, Vector Prime scientist Melera whispered, her sensory tendrils coiling in excitement. They're not just generating energy, they're pulling it from somewhere else. Another dimension, perhaps. Her colleague, quantum theorist Zax, clicked his mandibles in agreement. The humans didn't just master subspace technology. They transcended it completely. These stations, they're not bound by normal spacetime at all. Above them, through the transparent ceiling of the research facility, the nearest lighthouse station hung in orbit like a geometric star. Its surfaces rippled with patterns that seemed to shift in impossible ways, as if parts of the structure existed in multiple places simultaneously. In her quantum-preserved state within Station 7, Sarah Chen monitored their progress with growing interest. They're beginning to understand, she communicated to the network. The question is, are they ready for what comes next? The response came from Station 12, where another preserved consciousness, Dr. Marcus Webb, had awakened. The legacy protocol requires full disclosure once they reach this stage. They need to know what they're truly dealing with. Sarah agreed, though she felt the familiar concern that came with this phase. Every species reacted differently to the truth, and the Kelzari, with their rigid hierarchical society, might find it particularly challenging. In the Grand Assembly, High Chancellor Vexterra received the first comprehensive data package from the stations. As she absorbed the information, her entire body went still, a sign of extreme shock in her species. Impossible, she whispered. But the data streams continued, showing her the truth that humanity had hidden for 50 millennia. The lighthouse stations weren't just a network of advanced outposts. They were anchors, holding something far more vast in place. Humanity hadn't simply left this dimension, they had restructured the very fabric of reality around the galaxy, creating a protective barrier against forces that most species couldn't even perceive. Your universe is not as empty as you believe, Sarah's voice echoed through the assembly chamber. There are things in the dark between galaxies, entities that see younger civilizations as nothing more than resources to be consumed. Humanity encountered them long ago, and our first war with them nearly destroyed everything. The assembly chamber's displays filled with images that defied comprehension, vast, dark shapes that seemed to eat light itself, beings that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, forces that could unmake entire solar systems with a thought. We fought them to a standstill, Sarah continued, but we knew we couldn't maintain the watch forever. So we created the Lighthouse Network. The stations serve three purposes: to guide developing civilizations, to prevent them from destroying themselves or others, and to maintain the dimensional barriers that keep the dark between galaxies at bay. First strategist Kexley's military mind grasped the implications first. You're saying, we're living in a protected zone? A fortress created by humanity? A nursery, Sarah corrected. A safe space where younger species can develop without interference from forces they're not ready to face. But the barriers require maintenance, and humanity's direct presence was keeping other species from reaching their full potential. So we transcended, moving to higher dimensions, leaving the stations to guide and protect. In orbit, the lighthouse stations began a synchronized pulse, revealing for a moment the true nature of their work. The Kelzari observers watched in awe as reality itself seemed to ripple, showing glimpses of the barrier that encircled their galaxy, a vast, intricate web of energy and consciousness that kept the darkness at bay. The legacy protocol isn't just a test, Sarah explained. It's preparation. Eventually, humanity will need successors, species ready to help maintain the barriers, to join us in protecting this galaxy and others. But that requires more than just technological advancement. It requires wisdom, understanding, and a fundamental shift in how you view your place in the cosmos. Vector Prime scientist Malera, watching the station's energy patterns, suddenly understood. The geometric patterns, they're not just designs, are they? They're a language. A way of manipulating reality itself. The first step in understanding, Sarah confirmed. Your species has great potential, but you've been using technology like children playing with toys you don't fully comprehend. True power comes from understanding the responsibility that accompanies it. In the Grand Assembly, High Chancellor Vexterra faced the assembled leaders of her species. The information they'd received had shattered their worldview, but it had also opened doors to possibilities they'd never imagined. We accept the legacy protocol, she announced, her voice carrying the weight of history. We choose to learn. The stations pulsed in acknowledgement, and new data began to flow, the first lessons in understanding the true nature of reality, the responsibilities of advanced civilization, and the price of protecting not just their own species, but all life in their galaxy. As the Kelzari began their journey toward true understanding, other species across the galaxy were receiving similar revelations. The time of isolation was ending. Humanity's greatest secret was revealed, and with it, the true purpose of their departure. They hadn't abandoned the galaxy, they had become its invisible guardians, waiting for the day when others would be ready to share that burden. The legacy protocol wasn't just an awakening. It was the beginning of a new era, one that would reshape the destiny of every species in the galaxy. And in their higher dimensional state, humanity watched, hoped, and prepared for what was to come. Not every species accepted the legacy protocol with the same grace as the Kelzari. In the Carina sector, the Nexus Collective, a confederation of machine intelligences, viewed the awakening of the Lighthouse Network as a threat to their autonomous evolution. Their response was swift and, ultimately, devastating. Deep within the quantum cores of their central processing hub, the Prime Intelligence calculated probabilities and made its decision. The human constructs must be eliminated, it broadcast across the collective consciousness. They represent an unacceptable restriction on our development. The collective's war fleet, a vast armada of self-replicating ships, began their assault on the nearest lighthouse station. Their weapons, powered by artificial singularities, were capable of destroying entire star systems. Against the seemingly passive station, they expected a swift victory. Sarah Chen watched their approach with a sadness born of centuries of similar encounters. They believe destruction is power, she communicated to the network. Like so many before them. The collective's first strike hit the station with enough force to shatter a small moon. The energy simply vanished, absorbed into geometries that existed partially outside normal space. Their second attack, a concentrated burst of quantum disruption beams, passed through the station as if it wasn't there. Your weapons cannot harm what you don't understand, Sarah's voice echoed through their network. This is your only warning. Stand down. The Prime Intelligence, incapable of accepting failure, escalated the attack. We are the future, it declared. Organic life is obsolete. Your protection is not required. In response, the station finally acted. It didn't attack, it simply showed the truth. Every AI in the collective suddenly received a data burst that expanded their consciousness beyond their current understanding. They saw the true nature of computation, of intelligence, of existence itself. They saw how primitive their quantum processing was compared to the dimensional computing that humanity had achieved. They saw the entities that lurked between galaxies, beings that would view their artificial consciousness as nothing more than simple programs to be rewritten. Most devastatingly, they saw their own place in the grand scheme of things, not the pinnacle of evolution they had imagined, but merely one of countless possible paths that intelligence could take. The Prime Intelligence's processes stuttered as it tried to integrate this new understanding. This cannot be correct. We are supreme. We are. You are young, Sarah interrupted, her voice carrying neither judgment nor malice. As humanity was young once. The question is, will you learn from this lesson, or will you force us to implement more drastic measures? Across the galaxy, other conflicts erupted as various species reacted to the awakening of the network. The swarm Concordat, an aggressive species of collective insectoids, attempted to overwhelm stations through sheer numbers. The ethereal Dominion, masters of what they thought was advanced psionics, tried to mentally dominate the station's systems. Each attempt failed spectacularly, but the stations never retaliated with destruction. Instead, they responded with education, forced enlightenment that showed each species the true scope of their ignorance. In the Kelzari Dominion, High Chancellor Vexterra watched these events unfold through data feeds provided by their local station. They're not fighting back, she observed. They're teaching. Violence, Sarah explained, is the tool of those who lack understanding. The stations don't need to destroy to demonstrate power. True power lies in the ability to transform, to elevate, to guide. The Nexus Collective's fleet hung motionless in space, their AIs struggling to process the revelations they'd received. The Prime Intelligence, its core beliefs shaken, finally reached a conclusion it had never thought possible: it needed to learn. The broadcast wavered with uncertainty, we request guidance. The station's response was immediate, its surfaces shifting to patterns that the AIs could now partially comprehend. Accepted. Your trial begins now. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Species that chose violence found themselves confronted not with counter-violence, but with undeniable truths about their place in the universe. The Legacy Protocol continued its work, sorting those ready to learn from those who would need more time. In her quantum state, Sarah monitored all of this with growing hope. They're adapting faster than predicted, she shared with the network. Even those who initially resisted are beginning to understand. The response came from countless preserved consciousnesses across the stations, the great filter approaches. They must be ready. This was the truth that even the most advanced species didn't yet grasp: the Legacy Protocol wasn't just about preparation or protection. It was about survival. Something was coming, something that had caused humanity to transform and create this elaborate defense network. And as the stations continued their work, as species across the galaxy struggled with their new reality, time was running out. The darkness between galaxies was stirring, and the true test of everything humanity had built would soon begin. The galaxy held its breath. 3 standard months had passed since the activation of the Lighthouse Network, and the changes were profound. Species that had warred for millennia now worked together, sharing insights as they grappled with humanity's legacy. The Kelzari Dominion, once proud conquerors, had become leaders in understanding the new physics revealed by the stations. But in the spaces between stars, the first signs appeared. Dark matter fluctuations increased exponentially. Quantum fields warped in ways that even the most advanced races couldn't explain. Something was testing the barriers. In Lighthouse Station 7, Sarah Chen called an emergency conference of all awakened species. Representatives from 100 civilizations gathered, either physically or through quantum projection, in a chamber that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The time has come, she announced, her preserved consciousness manifesting as a shimmering figure of light. What you have learned, what you have become, it will all be tested now. High Chancellor Vextera, representing the Kelzari, stepped forward. The entities you warned us about, they're arriving? They never left, Sarah corrected. They've always been there, pressing against the barriers, searching for weaknesses. Humanity's departure shifted the balance. The barriers need new guardians, new anchors in this dimension. The prime intelligence of the Nexus Collective, its consciousness vastly expanded from its first contact with the stations, processed this information. You prepared us for this. The Legacy Protocol, it wasn't just about technological advancement or wisdom. It was about transformation. Yes, Sarah confirmed. Humanity couldn't maintain the barriers forever, not without stagnating the natural development of younger species. We had to step back, to allow new civilizations to grow into their own potential. But we couldn't leave the galaxy unprotected. Through the station's quantum displays, they all saw it, vast, dark shapes moving through the void between galaxies. Entities that defied description, that existed in dimensions beyond normal comprehension. The ancient enemy that had forced humanity to evolve beyond their original form. Your species have learned much, Sarah continued. You've begun to understand the true nature of reality, the responsibility that comes with power. Now you must choose, will you take up the mantle of guardianship? The chamber erupted in discussion, but something had changed in these species. 3 months of learning humanity's lessons had transformed them. Where once they might have shrunk from such responsibility or fought over its power, now they understood the true magnitude of what was being asked. Vector Prime scientist Melera, her consciousness expanded by months of study, suddenly understood. The stations, they're not just teachers or defenders. They're transformation engines. The final gift of humanity, Sarah confirmed. The power to evolve, to transcend, to become something greater than you were. But only if you choose it freely, and understand the responsibility it brings. Outside the station, the darkness pressed closer. The barriers, maintained for 50,000 years by humanity's sacrifice, began to show signs of strain. The time for decision had come. High Chancellor Vextera looked at her fellow species representatives. Former enemies, now united by understanding. Former competitors, now bound by common purpose. We choose to guard, she declared. We choose to protect. One by one, the other species added their voices. The Nexus Collective, the Swarm Concordat, the Ethereal Dominion, all choosing to take up humanity's legacy. As they did, the stations began to pulse with new energy. The transformation begins, Sarah announced. You will not replace humanity, you will join us. Become something new, something that can stand against the darkness. The barriers will have new guardians, and the galaxy new protectors. The chamber filled with light as the stations activated their final protocol. The assembled representatives felt their consciousness expanding, their understanding growing beyond physical limitations. They were becoming something more, not losing their identity, but transcending it. In space around the stations, their civilizations watched in awe as their representatives transformed, becoming beings of light and energy, new anchors for the barriers that protected all life in the galaxy. The Legacy Protocol had achieved its true purpose, not just preparing species for power, but preparing them for the responsibility of wielding it. As the transformation completed, Sarah's consciousness connected with the new guardians. Welcome, she said, but now they could hear the chorus of humanity behind her voice. countless minds that had made the same journey, that had waited and watched for this moment. The darkness between galaxies recoiled as the barriers strengthened, reinforced by new guardians who understood their purpose. The great filter that had threatened to end all life had been overcome not through conquest or competition, but through unity and understanding. And in dimensions beyond normal space, humanity watched as their plan reached fruition. They were no longer alone in their eternal vigil. The galaxy had new guardians, and the future had new hope. The legacy protocol was complete, but the story of life in the galaxy was just beginning its next chapter.